going on, Who Dat Nation? Hope you guys are having a wonderful weekend. For today's video, I wanted to go take a look at the updated depth chart around the New Orleans Saints after this first wave of NFL free agency. That way we can all know what are the team needs, what's going on, and how does the team kind of look right now. But before we dive into that, got to ask you guys to help a brother out. Share the video for me if you want to get some love and get a retweet on social media. Just click the share button, click the X icon or the little Twitter icon, whatever you want to call it, and then tag me at TraceGirouard48. You see my handle right there. If you do all that, I will retweet you. You just have to make sure you click post at the end of it so that way I can get the notification. When you do, I will retweet you and I'll show you some love on social media. But let's take a look at arguably the most important position in all of sports. That is the quarterback room. Derek Carr, he's your QB1. Jake Haener, QB2. Nathan Peterman, QB3. Now, this is different from last year where Jameis Winston was QB2 and Haener was the third on the roster. So why Nathan Peterman? Why was this a move that the Saints wanted to make? Well, I asked my guy Mitchell Renz about it. He covers the Raiders here, and there is some familiarity between Nathan Peterman and Derek Carr from their time with the Raiders together. But John Gruden loved keeping Nathan Peterman around in the Raiders locker room, as well as other coaches across the NFL. They like having Peterman around because he's a very smart player. He has a high football IQ, and he can hold the clipboard and be very, very effective in, pointing out things that the starting quarterback may not have seen, pointing out coverages, sharing ideas, bouncing thoughts off of the other guy's mind. And on top of that, he's a good practice squad quarterback because you can pretty much ask him to do anything and he can replicate it pretty closely. Obviously, can't ask him to be Lamar Jackson, but you can ask him, say, we want you to run this kind of offense. We want you to kind of do these sort of things, and Nathan Peterman can execute that. So that is why Peterman is on the roster. He's not making a lot of money. I think Haener will be QB2. Looking at the running back room, Alvin Kamara, no surprise there. He's your running back 1. Jamal Williams, the running back 2. He's a really good back that can play or that can be very effective in between the hashes and on short yardage downs. Obviously, last year, he was not very impactful, but just 2 seasons ago, he had the most rushing touchdowns among all running backs in the league. Kendre Miller, holy cow, this kid is electric. I love the player, and I want to see him have a much bigger role this year. He's just got to stay healthy. Jordan Mims and James Robinson round out the running back depth chart. I will say this. I do think that the running backs and the rushing attack in general is going to prosper under Klint Kubiak. Kubiak is a really, really smart offensive mind, and he's going to be able to utilize a lot of the same things that he did in San Francisco with the 49ers, with Christian McCaffrey, Brock Purdy, Juwan Jennings, Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle, all of those guys. He's going to be able to replicate some of that in New Orleans among all of the weapons, not just in the backfield, but in the receiving room as well. And speaking of the receiving room, here's how it shakes out. Chris Olave, he's your wide receiver 1, no surprise there. Cedric Wilson, a recent free agency acquisition. I actually really like this fit for New Orleans with Cedric Wilson. He played under Mike McDaniel, who is a product of Kyle Shanahan. You know who else is a product of Kyle Shanahan? Your new OC, Klint Kubiak. Rashid Shaheed, I think he's going to line up in the slot quite a bit, but you also have Stanley Morgan, a recent special teams guy. Seriously doubt he gets a lot of true run with the wide receivers. And then A.T. Perry. I like to call him Scary Perry because the dude is a freak. So the production for the numbers, or your 3 young wideouts, Chris Olave, Rashid Shaheed, A.T. Perry, it was stellar. You had 14 touchdowns just across all 3 of those guys. You had over 1,000 yards for Chris Olave. You had over 700 yards, for Rashid Shaheed. And A.T. Perry, in an extremely limited sample size, averaged over 20 yards per catch, 4 touchdowns on just 12 catches. This guy literally was just a big play machine. Now, I want to ask you this question, Who Dat Nation. Who's going to lead the Saints in receiving in 2024? I think it's going to be Chris Olave, but if you think that a guy like a Rashid Shaheed or an A.T. Perry or somebody else that, tight end, running back, any of those guys, if any of those guys you think is going to come make a big case to be a true strong weapon in the receiving game for the Saints, I want you to shout him out in the comment section. Who's going to lead the Saints in receiving? All right, the tight end room. this is going to make a lot of people mad because Taysom Hill is the tight end 3. But the reason I put him at tight end 3 is because he's just an offensive weapon. He's not a starting tight end. He's not a starting quarterback. He's not a starting running back. He's not a starting receiver. He's just like all of them. He does all of it. So that's why I have him at tight end 3. Juwan Johnson, he is your tight end 1. I really like the receiving ability with him. Foster Moreau, obviously there's the connection between him and Carr from their time in the Raiders. I think that he was a solid player this year, made some mistakes, had some drops that were very untimely and very impactful in the games that they were in. But I will say this, I think that Foster Moreau can still be a good weapon on the offensive side of the ball. And I will say this, there's a lot of Saints fans and a lot of social media people out there talking about the Saints might want to go Brock Bowers, that they want the Saints to draft Brock Bowers at 14 overall. And I don't mind that. Like, I personally, if you want to go best player available and Brock Bowers is there, hell yeah, sign me up. But I'm not going to sit here and be ridiculous and say that tight end is the biggest need for the Saints. It's offensive line. The offensive line is the biggest need for the New Orleans Saints this offseason. Because when you look at the depth chart here, Trevor Penning has no business being your starting left tackle. Whenever we drafted him, I was high on the player. I'm man enough to admit when I'm wrong, and I was wrong. I'd love to be proven wrong once again, and I'd like Penning to be a good player. However, doesn't feel like that's going to be in the cards. James Hurst, not really a fan of his production. Erik McCoy, he's really good. He's pretty much the one bright spot on this offensive line. Cesar Ruiz, I'm tired of talking about him. He stinks. He got an extension after ending the season 2 years ago on a high note, and then last year played terribly. And then Ryan Ramczyk, he is a just bona fide franchise right tackle. However, he's getting up there in age, and the dude basically has no cartilage left in his knee, so that is something to monitor. Maybe Ryan Ramczyk is a player that either retires or starts getting less run. But don't overthink it. This is my biggest thing here. Please just draft an offensive line in round 1. That's what you need. That's what you need. If all of your top offensive linemen are off the board, if Olu Fashanu, J.C. Latham, Troy Fontenot, Talisi Fuaga, and a ton of other players, a lot of offensive tackles, if all of them are gone, sure, draft a Brock Bowers, draft a wide receiver. I don't care. But that's not going to be the case. Just draft an offensive lineman round 1. Don't overthink it. Just make it happen. Make the easy pick. Now, Who Dat Nation, free agency is going on right now, but the I almost said NLF. The NFL draft is right around the corner. So be sure to subscribe. That way you can stay notified around what's going on with the New Orleans Saints, as well as tune into our live coverage that we've been having multiple times a week over the past few weeks now. So be sure to lock us in. 100% free Saints content by Saints fans for Saints fans. So let's take a look at the defensive line depth chart. Don't shoot the messenger. Chase Young and Carl Granderson. Those are your starting 2 defensive ends. Cameron Jordan, I love the player. I got to meet him at the Combine. Great dude. A Saints legend, an NFL legend. There is no doubt about that. However, last year, Carl Granderson was number 1 in sack production for the Saints. Cameron Jordan wasn't top 5. So that's why I put Chase Young over Cameron Jordan. But you got Colin Saunders, Nathan Shepard, Brian Brzee, and Jack Heflin as well. Isaiah Foskey, second-round pick last year out of Notre Dame. I want to see him get some more run and be healthy. Tano Passanio was also top 5 in sack production. Peyton Turner, I do feel as if could be a cut candidate whenever we got to get down to the 53-man roster. And on top of that, you also got Nico Lalos. But here's the thing. I'm not done on the defensive line, whether it's free agency, whether it's draft. I'm still adding players because I don't think that just defensive end is a need. I think defensive tackle is one too. Like, you lost Malcolm Roach. That's a player that you're going to miss having around in the locker room. You're going to miss having on the field. I think that the Saints should still go add defensive line depth, maybe some later round picks in the draft, maybe go edge rusher round 1. I don't know. But I think that defensive line still needs a few more players on it. But let's take a look at the linebacker depth chart. Pete Werner, Demario Davis, Willie Gay. No surprises here. I love the addition of Willie Gay. He was signed to a very cheap, very team-friendly deal. 1 year, up to $5 million. Only 3 of that is guaranteed. I think that Willie Gay is going to bring a ton of energy, and he's going to bring a ton of swagger and fun and really, really good production in the linebacker room. You also got Monty Rice. You got DeMarco Jackson, Nefi Sewell, and Anthony Orji on the roster. Demario Davis, he got like a 2-year extension, and the dude just will not slow down. He is just really, really good. Keep on keeping on, Demario. Love to see you play at a high level still. The cornerbacks, good news there. Marshawn Lattimore is still around. Paulson Adebo, I love what he is turning into. I think that he could be a really, really good player for a really long time here in the black and gold. But you also got Alontae Taylor in the nickel. I do think that they may try to move Alontae Taylor to the outside because that's what I would do. Taylor did struggle when he played in this nickel slot position. He wasn't great in coverage. He was decent in run defense, but he played much better on the outside when he could utilize the sideline. I love bringing back Ugo Amadi. You got Rajon Wright, the last chance you legend, and you got Faion Hicks as well on the depth chart. Do not worry, Saints fans. Marshawn Lattimore is not going anywhere. We talked a lot about trade rumors, and my take has been very consistent this entire offseason. Don't trade Marshawn Lattimore. The only way I would justify trading him is if you're getting another first-round pick, which I don't think you would get. That's the only justification I would give to trading a player like Lattimore's caliber. I think that he's sticking around. I think that he's going to be back this year. Whatever is going on inside the walls, I think they're going to be able to iron that out, make things work. That way we can get Lattimore back on the field, and that way we can have Marshawn, Paulson Adebo, maybe Alontae Taylor all holding it down as your cornerbacks for 2024. But let's take it to the safeties. You got Tyrann Mathieu, Jordan Howden, Jonathan Abram, who re-signed recently, and J.T. Gray. These are players that are really, really solid. I love Tyrann Mathieu. Got a 2-year extension. Really, really good. The Honey Badger is a Saints legend. The Honey Badger is an NFL legend. There is no argument that you can make that tells me otherwise. Jordan Howden, really solid rookie season when he had to fill in for Marcus May. I want to see what he can do in year 2. I think that you could also see Jonathan Abram take over as a starter for Jordan Howden, but that's just what I'm rolling with right now. Then you got your special teams ace, J.T. Gray, as well on the roster. And to round things out, because special teams, special players, they make special plays. Check, 1-2, 1-2. Lou Headley, he's your punter. Blake Groupie, you got a kicker. He's pretty good. Missed some kicks in the season, but he was also the NFC Special Teams Player of the Week after playing against the Patriots. And then Zach Wood, he's your long snapper. He's been around for a while. He's going to be back again. So be honest for me, Saints fans. How would you grade the roster right now? Scale it for me 1 to 100. For me, I'm going anywhere between a 78 to like an 82. I think it's kind of closer to that 78 side anyway. I think it's a good team. I would love for them to get a little bit younger and a little bit cheaper. And I would love to see some of the prime, top-tier positions have more talent like a quarterback. But I think that they have a lot of really good tools, and I think that they have a lot of really useful weapons on both sides of the ball. So let me know down in the comments section. And as always, y'all stay golden. Have a great weekend.